So joining right now, we have former FBI special agent and leader of Microsoft's Digital Threat Analysis Center, Clint Watts. He's also an MSNBC national security analyst. So welcome, Clint. Are Congress and the Supreme Court correct? Does China's ownership of this app pose national security concerns? And if it were to be implemented tomorrow, how far will the ban go to stop China from harvesting Americans' private data?
Yeah, it's interesting how this will play out. First, in terms of the law, this has been going on for quite some time. And both parties, in many ways, have, so I think you saw across the Supreme Court, there was bipartisan support of this ban. I think the next part of it is what happens really on Monday, let's say. Even if there is an extension, it has to come to some sort of an American ownership. The key point that has come up over and over in these cases that have been in courts, and also during the legislative debate on this, is that having a foreign country that has some sort of control over an application that goes to so many Americans, it is both about data, but it's also about control of the content, and how do we know what that control of the content is. So none of those things seem to be resolved. Talking about moving to this other app, Red Note, I would not be surprised if Congress and other legislators impose the same sort of ban, or even work for a larger, more broad bill about foreign ownership of social media applications as well. So this may just be the start of a much longer trend.
And the fact is that President-elect Trump, he spoke on the phone with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday, and they discussed TikTok, among other things. Trump has vowed to save the app because he thinks it helped him win the 2024 election. We got word that he's considering a 90-day extension. He'll most likely do it. That's his quote. Even though he wanted it banned last time he was in the White House. Do you have any idea what that conversation was like, Clint? And what does it say about Trump's attitude toward China that he's now siding with TikTok potentially while simultaneously threatening Beijing with 60% tariffs?
Yeah, there's multiple layers to this, Alex. I wouldn't just limit it to TikTok. I imagine that conversation, one component of it was about TikTok. And just like you saw from those numbers, those 800 plus million users of TikTok are not all in the United States. So the U.S. is only a portion of that market worldwide. Separately, fentanyl is a major issue that's been in debate that President Trump has argued needs to be stopped and needs to be controls on. And then the larger issue of trade and a potential Taiwan invasion, which is on everyone's mind. Add all these together, China will be the focal point of foreign policy for the Trump administration. They have said as much so far, and I expect this to be the first of many phone calls. What I would note, though, is there's been many, movements back and forth in terms of President Trump's negotiations with China on many different issues. So I don't think anything is set, at least not yet, before the administration starts next week.
But looking ahead, we have TikTok CEO who's expected at Trump's inauguration Monday. In fact, take a listen to some of the message he posted on the platform yesterday. Here it is.
I want to thank President Trump for his commitment to work with us to find a solution that keeps TikTok available in the United States. This is a strong stand for the First Amendment and against arbitrary censorship. We are grateful and pleased to have the support of a president who truly understands our platform. One who has used TikTok to express his own thoughts and perspectives, connecting with the world and generating more than 60 billion views of his content in the process.
Okay, that sounds kind of like a political message there. But in addition, you have China's vice president, who's also going to be there as President Xi's special representative. This after Trump sent Xi that highly unusual invitation last month. Considering Trump's nominee for Secretary of State Marco Rubio called China the most potent and dangerous near-peer adversary the U.S. has ever confronted, what do you make of this message and the two leaders attending the inauguration?
I think it's an interesting strategic point that will come up in this year, in 2025. If there's anything with foreign policy, we'll talk about Russia and Ukraine. We're seeing the ceasefire in Israel. China will be the focal point from here forward for this administration. It was kind of in the background over the last 4 years. But if you look at the espionage cases that have been brought by the FBI, issues in terms of cybersecurity, which have been, very aggressive from the Chinese side, and then add to this this sort of negotiations, not just about TikTok, but a range of issues. I think you will see this will be the focal point for the next 4 years in terms of foreign policy. We had talked a decade ago about the shift to the Pacific. That was President Obama, you might remember, he was looking for that shift to the Pacific. Didn't really happen in the way that many thought it would. It's going to happen, I think, in this next administration in a big way. And I think this is just the start of many negotiations you'll see from the Trump administration. Some people coming to attend the inauguration, sure. But on the other side, I think you look at incoming Secretary of State Marco Rubio. There's no one that's been harder maybe on China than Senator Rubio was when he was in Congress.
Okay, Clint Watts, always good to have you on the show. Thank you so much.